Hey Eugenia, it's Dustin. So today I wanted to make you a little video here, kind of a documentary actually. I guess kind of similar to the Caracal video that I did a while ago. But today I actually wanted to do a video on one of my favorite places of all time to go. And you know how much I love outdoor stuff and nature and everything like that. And mountains and forests and all that, that's some of my favorites. So mountains is one of my number one. And I'd say my favorite mountain is Mount Shasta, just south of me. It's about, oh, I don't know, like an hour and 20 minutes. So it's like 80 miles south of me. Just kind of by, well, south of Yreka and around the Weed, California area. So yeah, haven't been able to drive down there in a little while, but hopefully soon. But I wanted to make a little video telling you about Mount Shasta and showing you some really nice pictures of it. so so yeah, it's just one of those, I'd say, majestic and beautiful photogenic mountains ever, I would say. And here, let me scoot over here. Right there, that's a picture I took one of the times I was down at Mount Shasta. Um, yeah, that's actually out at the lavender farm. Lavender farm, it's a big, gigantic, beautiful farm with just rows and rows of lavender. Looks really pretty, and it's it's right by the base of the mountain. I've gone there with my mom quite a few times. It's really pretty. It's they got beautiful fountains and gardens, and they got like gift shop, and you can walk the rows of lavender out there, and you can buy all kinds of different lavender things. So that's one of the prettiest places there in Shasta Valley, right by the mountain. So wanted to show you that picture right there. So now I'd like to show you or tell you about the mountain. So so Mount Shasta is actually a stratovolcano that is in the Shasta Trinity National Forest in Northern California. And the height of the mountain reaches a top peak of about 14,179 feet. So it's a pretty high mountain. It's one of the biggest here on the West Coast, and it is actually the second highest mountain in the Cascade Mountain Range here in the Pacific Northwest, just after Mount Rainier, which Mount Rainier is up north, up in Washington, right by Seattle. So, but the difference isn't very much. They're only about 230 feet apart in size. I think Mount Rainier is around 14,500, but yeah, they're pretty close and really close in size. Only a few hundred feet difference, but yeah, one of the biggest mountains, Mount Shasta. Yeah, and Mount Shasta is actually the fifth highest mountain in the state of California. It's behind number one tallest is Mount Whitney, which is around 14,505 feet, I think. Yeah, it's so once again, the size is pretty negligible between between the mountains. They're all pretty close in the 14,000, but it's one of the top five here on the West Coast. And yeah, this first picture here, I found quite a few pretty nice pictures. I really like this. This is just beautiful. The sky popping with the beautiful mountain there and everything. It's just looks amazing. It's I'd say this is one of the best showcasing pictures of the mountain from the perfect angle. I mean, it looks beautiful from all angles, but I'd say this is one of the best. I like the previous photo I just showed you at the lavender farm, that gives a really nice side to the mountain. Now the prominence of Mount Shasta is about 10,000 feet above the valley floor there in Shasta Valley. So when you're standing at the lowest point in the valley there, that mountain's going to be rising. You're going to see a rise in prominence of about 10,000 feet, which is a huge prominence. And I think I wrote it down here. Yeah, it's the 11th most prominent mountain in the United States. So the height of the mountain, like I said, 14,179 feet, that is from sea level to the top of the mountain. But when you're standing on the valley floor there, you're going to see 10,000 feet of prominence. So it's big. I mean, when you're driving, I've been down there so many times, and when you're driving to Shasta Valley and you come around the corner, because you're coming down into Hilt, California, and into Yreka, and that mountain is just, it's massive when you see it. It's kind of like Mount Rainier. I've only been there a couple times, but it is just so massive because there's so much prominence above, you know, where you are on the ground in relativity to the peak of the mountain. So yeah, it's big and it's beautiful when it first comes into sight when you're driving down there. So yeah, Mount Shasta has it has a total diameter around its base of about 17 miles. So it's a huge base around the mountain. When you're talking about from the furthest point away from the peak around the sides, it's just huge. So yeah, 17 miles. That's a pretty big diameter. And on clear days, it can be seen from like, you know, 140, 150 miles away on a clear day. I know Klamath Falls. I love Klamath Falls. They have like they have a fighter jet base there, F-15s and everything, and I've always loved to go and watch the jets there when they take off. It's a small little town, but you know, I'd say it's like maybe, I'd say about 50, 60 miles away from Mount Shasta. And when I've been coming down into Klamath Falls, I've seen it on a clear day when I'm looking south, and you can see that the mountain is just way down there. You can just see it, you know, poking up, you know, pretty big actually. I mean, so being able to see it from that far away, I mean, it looks pretty amazing. It's beautiful from all distances, I would say. But yeah, so Mount Shasta, as you can see, it has two peaks. The first peak summit, which is over 14,000, like I said before, is its main summit, but it has a secondary summit called Shastina, and it is 12,330 feet tall. So it's still just, I mean, it could almost be a double mountain, you know, with the two peaks there. It almost looks like two cones next to each other, just one taller than the other. One's a couple thousand feet taller than the other. But yeah, just Shastina, its second peak it's one of the tallest mountains just by itself. So yeah. Yeah, now Mount Shasta is actually considered an active volcano, even though it is like in a dormant state right now, but you know, it is active and it will erupt again. It has erupted like many times over the past 600,000 years. You know, I can't imagine, it's so beautiful down there. I just can't imagine it's like these volcanoes erupt and then they destroy the land around them. But you know, it's part of the earth and what it does, but it will erupt again eventually. And it erupts, like, I think I was reading about like on about 600 years on average is about how often it erupts, as far as they can tell from, like, you know, records going back and geologists, you know, checking out the mountain. And yeah, on Mount Shasta's, its biggest summit, There's the Hotlum cone because Mount Shasta has 4 different eruption cones, and the main summit is called the Hotlum cone. And that one has erupted the most times over the past 8,000 years. So, yeah, it's So, and the last time Mount Shasta erupted was about 220 years ago, maybe a little more, a little over 220 years ago, in the year 1786. So, yeah, it was a French explorer. His name was Lapérouse. So he actually witnessed and documented, I think, writing down in his journal or whatever, that he, is seeing this mountain erupting, because he could see the gigantic plumes of superheated rock and ash going just like miles and miles up into the atmosphere. So yeah, he was one of the first to document it erupting. So yeah, he was over on the California coast, I guess, and he could see the eruption from the California coastline. So that's a long ways away. So I'm not sure. I would say, God, maybe 120, 130 miles away over on the coast there. I think he was on a ship, one of those merchant ships and everything, and saw it from there from a distance. So that's the first recorded explorer documenting an eruption and seeing it. So, but of course the Native Americans, they've been in that area for so long, and they've seen the volcano erupt many times, I'm sure. But as far as a European explorer, he was the first. So yeah. Yeah, when you're looking at Mount Shasta, there's actually lava domes and lava flows that you can see scarring the sides of the mountain from the past eruptions. I always find the geology of rock formation and mountains to be so interesting because, of course, when you're up in the sky like flying, you can see it the best because it just kind of makes just beautiful designs of shaping the mountain and giving it character and everything. But yeah, when you see those scars from the mountain coming from those lava or the cones, the eruption cones, scarring it all the way out, those are actually from Lahars, and a lahar is actually like a mud flow because when a volcano erupts, usually there's like glaciers and snow and everything on the mountain. So, and that's just, oh my God, millions of tons, cubic feet of water that instantly is like, I'm sure some of it gets incinerated when it explodes because the explosion's so hot and such a massive eruption. But all of those glaciers and snow like melts almost instantly. So you just have millions of cubic feet of water that just comes pouring down the mountain, and it makes the mud flows called lahars that scar the sides of the mountains, and that's what those are from that you can see. Mount St. Helens had similar devastating lahars too when it erupted, and yeah, it just brings all those logs from trees that have been snapped in half from the eruption and everything, and it just kind of brings them down. And I guess you could think of it as these temporary waterways like rivers and stuff, but yeah, they're called a lahar, and they bring all that debris with tons of water that was melted instantly. And then you get what you have today, and you look at it and you see all the scars there. Those are all dried lahars from when it last erupted and everything. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, so Mount Shasta actually has 7 different glaciers on it that are there year-round usually. Some people think there's like 9, some say 5. Depends on what you're counting on the side of the mountain, but it's registered, I think, by the USGS as about 7 named glaciers up there that are there year-round that remain. So it's the Winton Glacier, the Ballum, the Whitney Watkins, the Mud Creek Glacier. This one's hard. This one's, I think, more of a Native American name. Conwacaton, yeah, the Conwacaton Glacier, and the Hotlum Glacier. So, and the Hotlum Glacier is the main glacier on the biggest eruption cone, which has the summit of over 14,000 feet. That's where the biggest glacier is there. And Mount Shasta, it contains the largest number of glaciers on one mountain in California, so that are there year round. So yeah, the current glaciers on Mount Shasta were created sometime in the last 1,000 years in a time period that was known as the Little Ice Age, which was just kind of a small period of global cooling, and that's when those current glaciers formed on Mount Shasta. Yeah, and the largest glacier, the Hotlam Glacier, it can actually move up to 7 inches in a 24-hour period, because glaciers move and they carve out the landscape around. That's how it carves some of these beautiful canyons and valleys, as glaciers moving and scraping all that rock. So they actually move quite quickly, and it's about half a square mile in size. So yeah, about half a square mile in size is the size of that glacier, and it remains relatively the same year after year with the snow accumulation and the freezing, about the same size. So yeah, Whitney Glacier on Mount Shasta, it's actually the longest glacier in California, and it's actually still growing. So that's pretty big. Yeah, so lots of people love to climb Mount Shasta, and I can imagine it'd be a beautiful mountain to climb. And the first ascent of Mount Shasta was in August 14th, 1854, I found out, by an 8-man party. It was led by Elias D. Pierce. He was a local there in the town of Yreka. Like I was saying before, Yreka, it's a town that's like, I don't know, 20 miles, I think, from the base of Mount Shasta. So yeah, he and his party reached the summit at about 11:30 a.m. that day, and they put up the American flag up there on the top on the summit. So yeah, and took photos. So that'd be pretty amazing to be there and see that. I'd love to be taking pictures up there. Or can you imagine me with my camera, Eugenia, vlogging up there on the summit? That'd be like crazy. It'd be so cold. Oh my gosh, it would just be freezing up there. I'd just be bundled up like an Eskimo. But yeah, one of the other notable people that made the ascent to the top of Mount Shasta is one of my favorite people. His name is John Muir. I don't know if you heard of him, Eugenia. He is he's like a conservationist, naturalist, geologist. He's done a lot. He created national parks. He came up with that whole idea about our national parks and everything that we have all over the place that are these giant protected open spaces. But yeah, he actually climbed Mount Shasta several times. And his first ascent was actually in 1874. And then his second ascent was in 1877. And that was a very dangerous ascent that he almost died on. It was pretty bad. Yeah, because after he summited, him and the guy he was with, they started to descend the mountain, and an unexpected storm came in, and just, blizzard conditions, whiteout, stuff like that. They were trapped on the side of the mountain when they were descending, and they actually made it to a hot spring, and they had to keep very, very low to the ground, like on their back or on their stomach for hours to try and ride the storm out and keep as warm as they can right there at this hot spring. Yeah, and John Muir, he never wore a lot of warm clothes, so it's like he had boots and pants on, and he just had like a shirt, like a button-down long sleeve shirt on, and that was it. Because sometimes when you're climbing and it's sunny, it can be very warm out, but if something like this storm rolls in, the temperature can drop so quick, and it's like, oh gosh, I don't have a jacket on. It's been so warm, but now this storm is rolling in, so he got caught with just a long sleeve shirt on, and he's trying to ride it out in the freezing cold for 17 hours. I just can't imagine it. That would be so scary. But yeah, when the storm finally passed, they they were able to continue the descent down, just frozen. He said their clothes were just frozen all over them. They're just so malnourished, and they needed water so bad, but they just kind of crawled into camp, just barely, with hardly any energy, just barely making it into camp. But they made it alive, and they made it out. So yeah, John Muir is a pretty amazing adventurist. He would climb all kinds of mountains, and that's one of the most interesting stories that I have read about his adventures. Yeah, Mount Shasta, it's actually, climbers would consider it a medium difficulty mountain to climb. Yeah, it's usually climbed between May and October. People can climb it year-round, but May and October, that's usually the best period, because I think you're going to get the least amount of storms developing in that area. But yeah, people still do climb it year-round, or try to. And when you're climbing it, you're definitely going to need some heavy warm gear. You're going to need ice axes. You're going to need crampons for your boots. You're going to need cams and climbing rope, and all kinds of stuff like that to keep you safe and secure to the side of the mountain. Yeah, and for the gear when you're climbing, I'm not sure if you are familiar with some of the climbing gear, Eugenia. A cam, it's like this spring-loaded device. It can be stuck in rock cracks, and it's spring-loaded, so when it goes in there, it creates an anchor point, and the little ends spring out in the crack of the rock, so it holds it as an anchor point, and it's stronger the more you pull out. So when you're secured to it, it's not going to give way. So there's so much force that's available to keep you and other people on the rope when you're pulling out on it. And the other important devices are carabiners. They're those little metal rings. You might have seen it, people use them as keychains sometimes, but there's certain ones just for rock climbing, ice climbing, and the carabiners, they have like a little secure latch that you push in, and it automatically springs back out, and it's to loop and attach and detach sections of your rope line quickly, and securely. So, when you're climbing, you can take off one section, put it away, and then attach another section, right below it or above it, and, keep climbing or descending. So it's just a quick way with those carabiners. So those are kind of the two main instruments they use, besides their rope and their axe. So, yeah. Oh, and you know how much I love to have a pocket knife. That's one thing you definitely want to carry when you're climbing. Gotta climb with a pocket knife, because you never know when you need to cut something away or whatever. Knives save lives, so yeah. And the standard route that people use to climb the mountain is about a 7-mile route called the John Muir route. And yeah, it's at 7 miles from the summit. And yeah, it's about 14 miles total up there and back, and it rises about 7,000 feet as you're climbing. So from the base camp up to the summit, you're going to rise about 7,000 feet in climbing and descend 7,000 feet. So that's kind of how that works. And it usually does take 2 days if you want to stay overnight and not go too fast. Some people are hardcore and they will do it in less than a day, day and a half, maybe less. But most people want to take their time. Bring a tent, because you can bring those tents that you pack in on your back, and use the tent there, set up camp, and then get ready to finish the climb the next day. So that's usually what people do. And there are multiple routes to climb the mountain on different sides of the face. But yeah, the John Muir route, that is the most popular route to take. Yeah, and I wanted to show you here. You can see these little dome clouds. Sometimes there's pictures with bigger ones, but these are called lenticular clouds. Kind of like the photo here. I'll put it up again. The photo I had in the beginning here. Those are lenticular clouds there at the the summit of the mountain. And the lenticular cloud, I wrote it down here, it's air moving over a mountain, cooling sufficiently for condensation to take place. So the air moves over the mountain and it cools, and the moisture squeezed out of the air, and it creates those clouds. And they don't move, actually. That's the weird thing about them. They're stationary clouds that don't move. The moisture's just squeezed out of the air. So it kind of could look like a spaceship or something. They're really eerie and cool. I mean, they're kind of mysterious looking, but I just love them. They form over usually tall mountains. Certain Mount Shasta has, I'd say, more than any mountain I've seen with pictures of lenticular clouds. But yeah, they are continuously formed there in the same location by new air moving into that location above the mountain summit, condensing, and then it produces more clouds. So they just, as that new air moves in, it just keeps creating and bringing moisture in, and it keeps squeezing the moisture out and creating that, stack of lenticular clouds. But it looks really pretty. There are so many beautiful pictures that I've found with amazing lenticular cloud structures. But yeah, it's one of those breathtaking things that happens in mountains, and Mount Shasta, I'd say, has the best that I have seen for sure. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you in this video, Eugenia, was right here. This is a couple pictures of me back in the 90s. I think I was like 16 or 17, I think this is. There's an airport down in Montague, which is right by Yreka in the Shasta Valley. And I got to go up in a glider with this pilot, and it was amazing. And a glider, the passenger sits in the front, and the pilot is usually in the back. So yeah, we went up right there in the Shasta Valley, and I took some really pretty pictures, or what I could at the time, because I just had one of those quick 35 millimeter cameras, because there's no digital cameras then. But took some pictures there of the mountain, Mount Shasta there, and me flying there above the Shasta Valley. It was just, I'll never forget that day. My dad, he took me down there, and I was so nervous but so excited, because a glider, it's not powered. It just, a plane takes you up with a tow rope, and it lets you go, and then you just start gliding, and you ride the thermals up there. Thermals are like a warm air that rises, and it creates lift for the aircraft, so you can keep flying and keep circling and riding those air currents up there until you want to descend. It just keeps on gliding. So it was pretty amazing, I have to say. It was a little scary. You're in a bubble canopy. I mean, you're feeling everything. You're feeling the airplane and the wind all over. I mean, I can imagine it's the closest it could probably feel to a bird, feeling all the forces here and there. So yeah, it was amazing. And yeah, I just wanted to show you that was one of the great things down at Mount Shasta that I did. So, and I'd love to do it again for sure. So I hope you liked that video, Eugenia. I always love making videos of things that are just really interesting, like documentary kind of style things. Kind of like the Caracal video. I just think it's fun. I'm like a documentary maniac. I've always watched documentaries on all kinds of things, nature and animals and history and all that. So yeah, thought I'd make you a Shasta video on one of my favorite places. So, and I hope you enjoyed it. So anyway, I always wondered if you've been to Northern California or Oregon. I know you said you've been to Seattle and Vancouver. I think you said in a live stream once, if I remember, but I don't think I heard you say Northern California or Oregon. So I always wondered if you've been there before or been up here. But yeah, beautiful mountain to visit. So I'm glad I could share that with you. And anyway, so today's Saturday, so I love you lots and lots, and I hope this video isn't too long for you. I tried to pack a lot in, so yes, I wanted to get as much in and as thorough as possible. So anyway, I love you lots and lots and lots, and I will be seeing you later, or I'll see you in my next video. And so yeah, not sure what that one's gonna be, but yet maybe a vlog, I'm not sure. But yeah, love you so much, and mwah, kisses, and yeah, hope you're doing good, and I will see you later. Okay, love you.